In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace a rear shock upper mount bracket on a Grand Cherokee. Remove the wheel. These are 22mm lug nuts. Whenever doing suspension work, front or rear, you always want to support if it calls for it. And in this case, this control arm and suspension on this end in the rear is independent. So we're always going to hold it steady. We don't want it to drop down. So we're just going to get a pull jack and hold it right there before we undo our shock. Now to get to the upper mount, you can take the whole fender skirt out. I'm just going to take this one clip out and then pull this aside and keep it aside with a bungee cord, because you can get easily up in there. Get a bungee cord, put it through there, and give it a little pull, bring it around back. So I'm taking a 16mm impact. Mine are pretty rusty. It could even be a 15 by factory. Giving it a tap, and I'm gonna take my 1/2-inch gun, see if I can back this bolt down. Okay, we'll do the same to the other side. Now we can undo the bottom of the shock mount, and this is a bolt with a nut. The nut is a 24mm wrench or socket, and the bolt head is a 21mm socket. So we're gonna take that out. Put those aside, and we can take the shock right out. Might have to compress it a little bit. So we're going to take the steel plate off, and that's just like this. The new one comes with it. Just take a pry bar or a screwdriver, pop that top of that right off. Just like that. And then you'll see the inside. We got to take that shock nut off. So you're going to need to hold this shock secure while we take the end piece off. Stop it from spinning. And that is an 18mm socket. There we go. So now we're going to transfer the dust boot cover right over. So I'm going to take a small pry bar or screwdriver and see if we can work it in there. Now we're going to do the same with this bushing. Transfer this, it's like a joust bumper. Pry bar in there, lift it up. So it's just a joust bumper, but it is needed, and it has those notches. You can see the new cap comes with them. So now I'm going to mount the shock, and I'm going to mount it by the bracket just to hold it steady so we can assemble it correctly. So this is the piece that latches onto that. So I'm going to slide that over, and you'll see why. We are going to put our joust bumper in, line those 3 dots up. So we're ready to install that. And we're going to put the flat washer on that comes with it, and then the new nut. That new nut is an 18mm. And the reason why I didn't pull the dust boot on is because we're going to have to hold this piston when we put a gun on that to tighten this nut. So I'm going to put a pair of, they're like, they're locking pliers. And if you notice, I'm grabbing closer to the mount, not near the seal. Because if I do make a mark on this, I don't want it to go into the seal part and destroy the actual seal. Now I can tighten this and the shock strut will, shaft will stay in place. So you're going to need to use a deep socket once you get past a certain point. And I'm just going to snug it up because I'm going to get the torque specs. All right, so now I'm going to get my pliers really crinched on there, and the torque spec is 37 foot-pounds. So I have a 3/8. So now that I have the shock mounted firmly, I can slide our plastic dust cover on, and I like to just push it and twist at the same time. See if we can get it to pop up in there. There we go. Now we have this cover. You see a little pinhole right there? Line them up. And this has a little plastic clip on it. So now that I have the plastic piece out, I'm going to start it. It's so much easier than trying to hold it and push it in on that one that's mounted there. So take a hammer. Just like that. And then push it right in. Now we're ready to install. So now we're going to reinstall the shock in the vehicle. And I'm pushing down on it so that I can get it to seat. And then I'm gonna, within a lickety split, see if I can bring it in there. There we go. Put the lower mounting bolt on. And now the shock is just going up and it's going into the seat. Put our bolt on. Now don't tighten the bottom until the top is in. So now we can go to the top and start the bolts. So now we can put our 2 mounting bolts on the top in, start them by hand. And I'm only going to use a 3/8 style to put this in, tighten it, because we have to torque it after, and I want to over tighten it with 1/2 inch. There we go. And the new socket size is 13 millimeter. The original, like I said, mine were pretty rusted. I ended up using a 16 to get it out. But these are 13, which is fine. So we'll put a 13 millimeter socket on a 3/8 drive, and we will snug them up, then we'll torque them. $13mm socket, little extension, and the torque spec is 48 foot-pounds. Double check. Now we can put the nut on. And that's a 24mm wrench and a 21mm socket. We're going to snug it so we can torque it to factory spec. Okay, I'm going to leave that wrench there. The torque is 178 foot-pounds. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch torque wrench for this. Make sure the suspension's got the jack has got the suspension level, so it's just like as if it's on the ground. So I actually lowered the jack down now that this is tight, so I can get my wrench out, and we're ready to go. Now we can put our fender skirt back in, remove the bungee cord, have our clip, just like that. So we can line up the hole, push the plastic clip in, snap it in. Now we can put our tire on. There are 5 lug nuts. We only have 4 because our locking lug broke. We're in the process of getting a new lug nut. This is 22mm socket. We're going to snug them up. We're going to torque them. The factory spec is 85 to 115. With the year and the mileage, I'm going to go right to max, probably 110, 115. Snug them in a crisscross. And I will lower it and torque it. So I'm going to set it to 115 because it's 85 to 115 torque specs, and because of the age and mileage, I'm going to the max. Going to crisscross pattern. Double check. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.